So a couple of weeks ago, Apple released the M2 MacBook Pro, and it's objectively the most powerful MacBook Apple ever made. And I'm not getting one. Let me explain. Let's ramble.
Hold up, place go wild when I pull up. They all on me like it wants.
Hey, what is up, guys? It's great to see you all again. And if you're new here, I'm Patrick, and this is where I ramble about tech and other stuff. So since you clicked on this video, chances are you already know very well that Apple announced two brand new MacBook Pros, the 14-inch and the 16-inch, carrying the new M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. And chances are also that you're considering whether you should get one. I've been pondering the exact same question since these machines were announced, and for me, the answer is a resounding no. I'm not gonna get the M2 MacBook Pro. Instead, I'm gonna wait for the M3 MacBook Pro. Now, there's a number of reasons that have led me to that conclusion, and I want to share my thought process with you and explain why I made that decision, and maybe it will help you with your purchasing decision. So there are two main events that made me skip the M2 MacBook Pro. One is the launch of the M1 MacBook Pro. I've switched from using PCs to using Macs in 2008, yes, I'm that old, and I've been pretty consistently impressed with every update. Sure, Apple has made some mistakes along the way, like the touch bar or removing most of the ports in the MacBooks, but all in all, MacBooks have become better and better over the years. But this has always happened pretty incrementally, until Apple introduced the Apple Silicon chips and put them in last year's MacBook Pros. This was no incremental upgrade, this was game-changing. And mind you, I was using a fully spec'd out 2019 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro, which at the time was an absolute beast. There was nothing more powerful except maybe the Mac Pro. So when Apple dropped the M1 successor to this machine, the specs presented during the event were out of this world, almost too good to be true. So naturally, I had to get my hands on one of those machines, if nothing else to review it for the channel, to see what all the fuss is about and whether these new computers were actually as good as Apple claimed. And I think we all know by now that yes, they absolutely were. This is by far the best computer I've ever owned. It is miles ahead of the 16-inch Intel machine that I had before. It's incredibly fast, unbelievably powerful, and the battery life has been outstanding. And I've yet to meet anyone who bought an M1 MacBook Pro and says, ugh, I wish this machine was a bit faster. No, everyone that bought this machine that I know absolutely loves it, and to many of us, it has been the perfect laptop. I mean, if the biggest debate about a product is whether to get the 14-inch or the 16-inch version of it, as a company, you understood the assignment. Now, because of the nature of this channel and because of video editing is my most demanding use case for a computer, I went for the top-end M1 Max machine and I pretty much spec'd it out. Maximum number of cores, 64 gigs of unified memory, you name it. All except storage, which I kept at 2 terabytes. Fast forward to today, and this laptop still absolutely kills it. I can do multiple streams of 4K, multiple cameras, all the plugins I want, and it doesn't break a sweat. It is literally the perfect computer for me. So when Apple presented the M2 version of this thing, my initial gut reaction as the geek that I am was, oh my god, I need this thing in my life. But now that my jets have cooled a little bit and I had some time to think, I realized how absolutely ludicrous that purchase would have been for me. I mean, here I am professing my undying love for my M1 MacBook Pro that still runs circles around any task I have for it. It never stutters when I'm editing. When I hit export, I go grab a coffee. When I get back, it's already done. And yet, I'm considering an upgrade. Now, don't get me wrong, the M2 MacBook Pro is objectively the better computer. But if my M1 MacBook Pro is perfect for me, then why would I upgrade? Because it's even more perfect? But that's not the only reason I'm not upgrading. There's another reason, and that reason is this little guy right here. This is the M2 Pro Mac Mini, and in my opinion, this was the real star of last week's presentation. As you know, Apple released a number of different Mac Minis alongside the new MacBook Pros with the regular M2 chip and with the new M2 Pro chip. And I believe that these little fellas are grossly underestimated. These machines are incredibly powerful and they can get spec'd out to a point where they get awfully close to the performance of the new MacBook Pros. The thing that sets them apart though is the price, with the entry-level M2 Mac Mini starting at $599, $499 if you're a student. By the way, if you want to get a great student's perspective on these machines, check out my buddy Fenson's channel, who's in fact still a student himself, but manages to make great content as well. I'll put a link to his channel in the description down below. And while you're down there, feel free to sub to my channel as well. It would be really appreciated. Anyway, the amount of power you're getting for the money in these Mac Minis is extraordinary. I've been looking for a more permanent desktop machine for a while now, one that can stay in the studio, so getting one of these M2 Pro Mac Minis was an absolute no-brainer for me. I already got the Apple Studio display last year, so this will be a fantastic, cost-effective way for me to upgrade the studio. So if you're looking for a more permanent solution, if you use your computer primarily at home or at the office, I believe these Mac Minis are the way to go, especially if you want to mind your budget. Just for the sake of comparison, the entry-level M2 MacBook Pro will cost you $2,000. The M2 Pro Mac Mini with similar specs will cost you only $1,299. That's a $700 difference. Granted, the Mini doesn't come with a display and peripherals, but most of us already have those, and even if you don't, $700 buys you a pretty sweet monitor setup. And with the 4 Thunderbolt ports on the back, you will have no issues hooking all of that up. I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, the M2 is a fantastic machine. It's the best laptop Apple has ever made. But do you really need it when there's 2 very compelling alternatives available? The M1 MacBook Pro is still more than most people need, and now that the M2 has dropped, you'll be able to pick one of these beasts up for a fraction of what it used to cost at launch. And the Mac Mini is already a fantastic deal right out of the gate. With this jump from M1 to M2, we're back to incremental upgrades. The real magic happened in 2019 when we jumped from Intel MacBook Pros to Apple Silicon. So in my opinion, the M2 MacBook Pro is for 2 types of users. One, the users that actually benefit from the added performance, like 3D artists and maybe heavy users of software like After Effects. But if you're that type of user, you already know exactly what you need. The second type of user is the user that just wants the best of the best and that has the cash to burn. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. You will be getting the best available MacBook, and it will obviously be the most future-proof option. But if you already own an M1 MacBook Pro, there's really no reason to upgrade. And even if you're coming from an Intel Mac and upgrading to Apple Silicon makes sense, I would encourage you to explore one of the options mentioned in this video, and I think in most cases you will find that it will be a massive upgrade covering all of your needs at a considerably lower price. For me, still being super impressed by my M1 Max MacBook Pro, I feel totally confident setting this one out and waiting for the M3 MacBook Pro, by which time upgrading makes more sense again. Guys, I hope the video was useful to you. If it was, please give it one of these. It really does make a difference. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.